Thank you. Thank you for being here. Uh, Thank you for listening to your own beautiful souls that are asking to be more fully alive and present and free and liberated. Mm. uh, and the liberation we seek is simply the knowing, the awakening, the allowing of ourselves, our true self, our imperishable, unwavering grace of being. It's just stunning. The liberation we're seeking is us, is what we are. So, the Return to Wholeness retreat, 4-day retreat, just ended yesterday. I had 8 beautiful souls show up for the retreat, and nothing but opening and truth and vulnerability and exploration and tears and pain and sorrow and bliss and aliveness. That was one of the words that kept coming up for everybody spontaneously, was just aliveness. There was a whole new sense of aliveness. And I wanted to speak about that today. And I really want to encourage, if it's resonant, any questions, participation, exploration, because it's a it can be a tricky um, journey. This journey back to our wholeness, into our wholeness. And what I wanted to speak to today was that the common experience for everybody on this retreat was that the desire was for the liberation. So the desire was for the sense of freedom, the relief of the burden, the relief of the weight of the stories, of the um, beliefs about self, the sense of unworthiness or unlovability or not enoughness or not being seen, not being valued. And those things that weigh on us, that make it difficult, challenging to love fully, to let down our defenses, to be completely surrendered into the beautiful love and grace of the consciousness that we are. Although not everyone quite was coming into it saying, yeah, that's exactly what I want. But they knew that there was a freedom, there was a liberation and a joy that was lacking, or that was fleeting and comes and goes, and just to feel that sense of peace with life and with self. And the nature of, and even though everyone was told this beforehand, you can't quite know until you arrive in any journey. Until you cross a threshold, you can't really know what the other side of that threshold is going to feel like. The common experience was a recognition that there was a lot of pain that wanted to be met, that wanted to be loved. And it was a bit disturbing, uh, because the expectation, the desire was for the liberation and the freedom and the lightness and the love. And when we surrender, and let go and allow the truth of our own beingness, the truth of the vastness of consciousness and love and that we are, to open and just allow that. It it can't quite be regulated. So in the opening and the allowing, what also arises, what also enters into our consciousness, into our experience, is so much of what we have been avoiding, so much of the pain, the fear, the sorrow, the grief of the traumas and the separation that has happened in this lifetime. It happens in every lifetime, a sense of separation from our divine nature. And we can ask, why does that happen? And why does, quote, why does God design it that way? And that is a discussion and a conversation that can certainly happen. But today we're just in the allowance. And even on the last day, when people were feeling like this is the last morning of the last day and I should be liberated, right? This should all just, I should now have crossed all these thresholds and let go of all the stuff. We did beautiful letting go ceremonies, so much vulnerability and sharing and emotional release. And yet here we are on the last day, and there was still aspects. Everyone was exhausted. Everyone was in this state of like I'm starting to kind of shut down because there's an exhaustion. And we were able to do our work and bringing the aliveness back in. But the recognition that there was still something there, a sorrow, a shame, a sense of shame, old pernicious fears. It's like, wait a minute, those are supposed to be gone. No, no, no. They're supposed to arise, and they will continue to arise. The work, and it is work. I've had this conversation with myself and others around it. Is it right to call it work? Yeah, it's work, but work of love. The work, the opportunity, the journey is to open up to and find the vastness of true love. So that is available, to meet all the parts of our soul constellation that want to be loved, that are here in this incarnation to be healed with love. What does a wounded child want from the parent? They just want to be loved. They don't want to be fixed so much. They don't even know, the young child, that there's a fixing to be done. They want to be held, accepted, and loved. That's the wounding of most all of us, is the is not knowing, not meeting, not having the experience of unwavering, unconditional love and acceptance. So even on the last day, one of the beautiful souls that was here, was her second journey, and she's doing such phenomenal work. And her whole life is transforming. But even in that morning, it was, oh, God, I just feel my sense of how's everyone thinking about me and how are people judging me? And it's right there, and I want it to go away. I don't want to feel this anymore. I hate, and her words were, I hate this. And so she knows enough to sit with that, and we work through it, because I hate this is the child's wound, not wanting to feel the pain. This is the child who's saying, I hate this. I don't like this. I want this to go away. I don't want to feel this anymore. So we awaken our imperishable nature of grace, love, compassion, so that we can rest in that and allow those feelings to arise and meet them with love. And the tricky part is that in order to truly meet that pain has to arise in its original nature. It has to be as real and as wholly felt as the original pain. And so it's consuming. This is the tricky part of this. It feels so consuming, which is why the practice of embodying love is so important. Over time, embodying, not just as a concept, but if the embodiment, the expansion, the blossoming of radiant love that we are is so important, because when the all consuming pain wound arises, there needs to be an embodiment of something, even just a little glimmer sometimes of a truth, so that we can not run, so we can parent our own child. We can hold that open, loving space. And it's hard for a parent. They feel the pain with the child. There's that empathy. There's so much love. They don't want their child to feel that pain either, but they know they have to hold the space of love. And so they do. And that's the opportunity that we get to do for ourselves. And when a wound has not healed properly, and all of our early wounds didn't heal properly because we didn't have the tools, the love, the grace to allow them to heal properly. They got covered over quickly. They scabbed over, they scarred, and they left a thick defensive scar. And for that wound to be healed, it needs to be opened again. It needs to be cleaned out or braided. And that's scary and it hurts. We don't want to do it. But right, again, that loving parent says, I know this hurts, baby. I know. But we got to open it up. We got to open it up. We got to, sorry, that's going to feel better. It'll heal. But for right now, we got to open it up and we got to clean it out. So this requires so much faith, which is why we study, which is why we come to satsang, which is why we have these conversations in our lives and with ourselves and in our meditations and with our teachers, to study the nature of what's going on. How does all this work? This beautiful mystical dance of our vast consciousness having a human experience, so that the soul can love, and so the soul can heal and love, but so that the soul constellation that we are can move into this our incarnation to bring its pain into form. It can bring its shadowing of love into form, so it can work with it, experience it, release it, heal it. So we need to study this dynamic of this human spiritual relationship. So the paradox, one of my mom's favorite words, because she gets it, is that we tend to not, the egoic self, who's trying to avoid pain and suffering and difficulty and challenge, naturally resists the full surrender because it recognizes, again, surrender can't be regulated. And a full surrender means, yes, I'm opening to everything. I'm opening to the vastness of my being, of love, of grace, and I'm opening to all that I've come here to feel and experience and heal. I'm opening to all of it. But it's difficult because as we start to open to the grace, that takes a while. But the arising of the childhood wound doesn't necessarily always wait until the fullness of our grace is embodied. So there has to be some faith there. There has to be some faith and guidance and having community and having friends and having a practice and having teachers that can help hold us in our love as we meet our wounding. So to truly meet our deepest wounding, it's necessary to be deeply embodied in our imperishable love, in the imperishable love as self. So we learn along the way to meet as best we can what needs to be met, what wants to be loved. And we will struggle. We will struggle. So we need to have guidance and teachers and a practice and study to help us along the way. And I've shared this before, but it's maybe worth sharing again. The more we rest in the true, unwavering love of consciousness as that embodied, we know ourselves to be that and have the experience of self, consciousness awakening to itself, has the experience of itself in this true, unwavering, steady equanimity of grace. When we really reach another level, and there's different levels of awakening and of embodiment, and the more stable we become, the the more that the really deep stuff comes up. And it can be disconcerting. It can be quite disconcerting, and because the feeling is, well, wait a minute, I am looking for total peace and total freedom, and that's still the egoic I wanting that. True grace of being just says, I just want to be the grace of being so I can meet whatever comes up. And as we start to embody that stability, the parts of ourselves that have been waiting for that stability to say, look, I'm pretty heavy. This is a deep wound. This is a deep one. And I'm not going to come forward until there seems to be a welcoming presence, until there's actually a maturity of consciousness available to meet me and to hold me. So it waits, it waits, it waits. And then we reach this beautiful grace of being. And I've had the experience of attaining that, if you will, and being in that space, and then going to bed and waking up in the morning with my most pernicious, oldest, deepest, most troubled aspects of my story, of my egoic self, of my person present. I mean, the really scary ones. But if because I was working with teachers, I knew what was happening. I was a little bit prepared. Oh, this this is what they were talking about. Here it is. And it was, again, the feelings would arise with such original pain that they were almost completely overwhelming. Almost, but they had to be that strong to feel them truthfully, honestly. So there they were. And it was all I had was a little bit of knowing of, okay, I know what's going on. This isn't the truth of me. This isn't the eternal nature of me. This is a part of my human dynamic. This is part of my the healing that I'm here to do. This is a part of my soul constellation arising to be met, to move out of shadow and it back into the light. And the analogy is that I felt like I was in a river, just being wanted to be carried away and just into the rapids and demolished, smashed upon the rocks and destroyed completely. And all I had was the knowing of truth, and I was like holding on to a little branch, a little twig on the side of the river, just going, "Okay, baby, don't break, man. Just hang in there." And it can be hours, days of allowing arise, let it arise, let it arise, let it arise. It wants to meet stability. It wants to meet grace, even if it's just a modicum of grace. It wants to arise and not be run from. It'd be like the most wounded child coming to the parent going, "Oh my God, I'm so hurt, I'm so hurt." And coming to the parent and the parent going, "Whoa, hold on, that's way too heavy for me." and and heading for the hills, man. It's us allowing, finding that grace of being that universal love and being able to say, "Yes, I can hold space for anything, even when it feels so painful, because I am the love beyond the pain." Experiencing the pain. This is the work. This is the opportunity. And it's so most avoid it simply because they don't have the tools. They haven't done the study. They haven't taken this path, the direct path to their grace of being, so it can be available to do the work. We're taught to avoid pain. We're taught to avoid the challenge. We're taught to feel the shame of it. Oh my God, we're taught to feel the shame of it. The shame of what we're here to work with. Would the loving parent shame the child for their pain? And of course, we're talking about the loving parent, the healthy parent, the ideal. Would they shame the child for their pain? And we see what happens when the unhealthy parent does shame the child for their pain. This is the work, to hold the space. But what is that space? That's the awakening of the true nature of our being in our meditations. Who am I really? What is the nature of this something that is beyond my transience of arising and falling thoughts, emotions, stories of self, all the coming and going of my story, my beliefs about myself, and I feel good about myself today, but oh, now not so good, and I can't get that to stabilize. And we're working with a construct of self that is not the eternal nature of us? Who are we beyond that? And if we're not doing that work, I don't know. Honestly, I do not know how to be free. Because otherwise, we're just trying to get the story, the construct of self to behave. It's like falling asleep at night and trying to make sure every dream you have is only a good dream. The mind's going to do what the mind's going to do. The egoic self is a construct that is fairly independent of truth. I've shared the story of being in the dark room down in Guatemala in 10 days and in a completely dark, pitch black room, and how halfway through my mind started to hallucinate the room because it couldn't deal with the nothingness. And so it made up a room, and it made up a room that was getting in my way. All these beams going across the room and just things to trip over and stuff. And I'm walking through a room that I know is empty, seeing a hallucination of the room, and I'm like walking through the room trying to make sure I don't hit my head on stuff that I know isn't there. The mind was like, "Look, I need to make something up because I don't like the not knowing." And it doesn't care. It didn't care if it made up a room that was totally getting in my way. When we were toddlers, we didn't know what we are. We didn't know. You are an individuated expression of the pure divine love, moving through a a soul that has healing to be done. And it's going to happen through form, through this personal experience. I don't know a whole lot of 3-year-olds that are real clear on that. So there we are. And we need an identity. And the mind says, all right, I can't live this life without an identity. I'll make one up. And it takes the evidence of self, it takes cues from a messed up reality where most everyone's living in their own pain dream, and it creates a self. But now we get to start to recognize what that is and what's going on and awaken beyond that into the grace of unwavering love and recognize, oh, that's what I am. And let that start over years to become the predominant embodied knowing of our being. So we can rest in that and then truly do the work, really meet and work with all that wants to be loved and healed. So the invitation is to be in your practice, be clear about what your practice is, to study, to have a devotion to absolute truth. So we can start to move beyond this roller coaster of getting our mind to behave for a while and then turning our backs and thinking, whew, I got that done. And we turn our backs and kind of go into our lives and it just reverts back to the old pain because it hasn't truly been met. It hasn't truly been loved. And we do it again and we do it again and we do it again and we medicate and we push it away and we create a somewhat loving and stable story of self, and we practice our affirmations about, no, I'm good, I'm love, I'm and our understanding of how people are projecting their stuff on us, and we do all these mental practices to construct a more stable story, and it will not stabilize. It will not hold. The only way I know is to surrender beyond the story into the unknown of self. The true self will initially arrive as a stranger, untrusted. The ego self will go, well, I don't know who this other self is you're inviting in to kind of take over and make decisions, but I do not trust this this formless something at all. I've got this. I've got this. Let me remain in control. But in the surrender, it's not all bliss. It's not all peace. Well, that's the paradox. It it is all peace within which the distress that wants to be loved arises. That's the wild thing. To that little branch I was holding on to, man, when all of my stuff was just presenting itself to be loved, was peace. I was holding on. I knew the presence of peace that is unwavering, within which the story, the feeling, the movement of my pain could be experienced. But we have to allow ourselves to open the wounds and clean them out and let them heal properly. And it was so beautiful to watch these 8 souls move through this and ask the questions about, wait a minute, I don't, how does this work, and get some clarity and go, oh, okay, yeah. Thank you. That's helpful. It's another tool I can use. And to watch them at the end of the retreat be in their liberation, knowing that they were going to experience and feel deep pain to be loved, to be met, and to be okay with that, because they had begun to awaken the imperishable, unwavering grace of awareness, of consciousness, of love. So they knew whatever arises, I will have the wherewithal, the awakened essence of truth, to meet it. Hmm. And after a while, when we truly love and heal that which wants to be loved and healed, it will not present itself anymore for healing. The healing is possible. There might be other stuff to work on, but little by little, we do the work, and we can live in an awakened state of love and peace and grace. And when things arise, and they will, they're not as scary. They're lighter. We've done the heavy lifting. There's still things to be moved into love, because we're not in the purely enlightened state of just pure absolute love. There's still things that are being worked through. But what a beautiful thing to be so steady and stable and in the state of equanimity, and noticing, oh, yep, I just got triggered. Beautiful. That's pointing me to something that wants love. and to have a practice and an embodiment. They can be that strong parent saying, all right, there's another one. Come on, more hugs. More hugs. That's self love. That's really self love. But to drop into, to know, to practice self love, we have to know what love really is. It needs to be awakened. Typically, we're doing self love. We're just trying to find more loving thoughts and applying those to our unloving thoughts. And we're just trying to get the loving thoughts to have dominance over the unloving thoughts. And that's not true self love. It's certainly valuable, certainly better than just being in the unloving thoughts. But when it's a battle of loving thoughts to unloving thoughts, then that battle is going to, you know, sometimes the loving thoughts are going to be winning, and other times the unloving thoughts are going to be winning. It's just back and forth forever. Hmm. Are there any questions, insights, appreciations, um, sharings? And there don't have to be, but if there are, it's funny. It's only 9:30, and it feels like it feels like it's been 4 hours. So, I want to share again one of the simplest inquiries that is helpful in this. The vastness of consciousness, it might for many just be words. Initially can be kind of understood as a concept, but the embodiment is a feeling of what it feels like to be free of the weight, the veil, the heaviness of whatever story we're suffering under, we are experiencing. So I want to share one of the inquiries that I've sat with for a long time that has been quite valuable. And even if you've heard some of these meditations or analogies before, every time I hear them, it's like, oh, that's right. That's right. I feel into the truth that the analogy is pointing to. And remember, there is no truth in the teachings, zero. They are pointing to a truth that has to be experienced. The truth is in the experience, not in the words, not in the concepts, and not in the teachings. So we do recognize, perhaps, that there are things that are transient and come and go. But there is something that is unwavering. And it's called awareness. And a way to feel into that is the analogy of the movie playing upon the movie screen and recognizing that without the movie screen, the movie could not be experienced. Without the movie screen, the movie could not be experienced. And the movie screen is blank. It is present. It allows whatever the movie is to play, and the movie screen does not change. And if the movie, which is like our story of self, our dream of self, if that movie changes, the movie screen is not perturbed. Let's say the movie playing is just a total horror flick, a very disturbing movie, and it's playing in the movie screen is allowing that and watching that and being with that, and then the movie changes from being an absolute horror flick to a romantic comedy. Just changes just like that. The screen doesn't go, whoa, hold on, whoa, wait. I'm still reeling from that whole horror flick thing. You gotta give me a minute. You gotta give me some time to adjust. No, the screen is just there. It's just present. Oh, it changed. Okay, now I'm with that. Oh, it changed again. Now I'm with that. So there's a grace, there's a stability, there's a stillness that is present to witness any movie that is playing, and it has to be there to experience the movie. If you look out the window and you look at the sky, you notice that there are or are not clouds, or there's different configurations of clouds. And the clouds come and go, and beyond the clouds, there is a sky, and it has to be there for the clouds to come and go. Its presence is necessary to hold space for the coming and going of clouds and weather and hurricanes and storms and beautiful sunsets and misty mornings. All that comes and goes and shifts and changes within an unchanging presence of sky. So, how does that relate to our experience? We come to recognize, think about it, feel into it for yourselves. Have you ever had a singular thought that has been present every moment of your life? No. You've never had a single thought that's been there every second. Maybe you've had a thought that's there a lot, a lot, but it's not there every second, which means it comes and goes. Have you ever had a singular emotion that has been there every second? Again, you might have an emotion or a state of mind that is predominant. Maybe there's an anxiety, but it wavers and it shifts and it's more or less anxious, and sometimes it's not there. So it comes and goes. So just like there has to be a movie screen that doesn't move in order to experience the movie, and there has to be a predominance of an unwavering presence of sky to hold space for and witness the changing weather, what has to be present so that every emotion and thought and feeling and sensation that arises and passes can be known? Peace, which is an inadequate word for awareness, consciousness, which is our inadequate words for the grace of God, which are inadequate words for the beingness. There's always inadequate words, but there's something that it has to be there. You can't experience a thought, a feeling, an emotion without the presence of awareness, just like you couldn't experience a movie without the presence of a screen. So the meditation, the opportunity, is to inquire, Okay, I know this now conceptually. There's something called awareness, presence, consciousness that is unmoving, unwavering, always present, within which my thoughts come and go. We can learn to gently point our awareness beyond the thoughts and inquire, what is that? What does it feel like? This thing we're calling awareness, consciousness, to move it from a concept to a knowing is to ask, what does it feel like? What is the nature of this unwavering presence that's very much like the sky? What is the nature of this something that is not judging, not assessing, not moving, not rushing toward things it likes and running away from things that it fears, because it is not the realm of likes and fears. It is the realm of loving presence, loving awareness. And again, the inquiry is, what is the nature of that? Can I feel that somewhere in my presence, in my being? And to recognize, oh, I am that. That's always been there. I've been collapsed into the story of self, into the dream, forgetting there is a dreamer. The dream is so small. The dream is so limited and mm, typically uh, doing its own thing. I don't know what the word for that is. It's just like my in the dark room when my mind made up the room. It's just doing its own thing. What's aware of that? So that's one way, one inquiry into the knowing of our truth is to inquire into what it feels like. And then to play, we can play in our meditation of feeling into that and not budging from it, allowing it to be just a, however it feels. It might feel like peace, it might feel like vastness, it might feel like acceptance. And to play with, if I were not to budge from this, if this was the predominant nature of how I move through the world, imagine moving through the world and meeting your relationships and meeting your obligations and meeting your challenges as this. When we awaken our authentic peace, we awaken our authentic power to meet the joys of the world, to meet the darkness of the world, to meet the joys of our soul, to meet the darkness of our soul that wants to be illuminated with love, to meet our pains, to meet our joys, to meet our grief, so that we can have a full life experience, feeling the full dimensionality of a life rested in the eternal grace of what we really are. Another inquiry is to play, let the mind play a little bit. They say you can use a thorn to remove a thorn. We can use the mind to point our awareness beyond the mind. So if I got a thorn in my arm and I don't have my fingers aren't capable of getting it out, I like, God, I need a tool. Oh, look, here's another thorn. And it's perfect. I can use that thorn to remove that thorn. We can use the mind to inquire beyond the mind. So that what that looks like is playing, sitting, resting, and asking, imagining, what would it feel like if I didn't have this whole construct of self? What would it feel like if I didn't have the complication of my story? The noise of my story, the distraction of my story. What would it feel like? And we are not asking what would life be like. That's way too much thinking and conjecture. It's feeling into, what would it feel like if just for a few minutes, just within a few minutes of this meditation, what if I didn't have this whole story? What if I didn't have a past? What would it feel like? Would I disappear? And play with that. God, what if I completely, even for just a few seconds, what if I completely let go of this whole dream of self, the whole story of self, and just allowed myself to be? Would I disappear? Would I cease to exist? No, something remains. Something remains. Something remains. What is that? As a feeling, what does it feel like? And we start to come into the realization, the experience that when we imagine just putting down our story for even a few moments, imagining if it just didn't exist, that what is there typically feels peaceful, unburdened. And in that moment, to recognize, I am that. There I am. Oh my God, it's been there all along. It's been there all along, covered by a story, veiled by my programming, my conditioning, my wounding. I don't have to feel shame for that. That's just what happens. But there it is. There I am. Our mind gives us clouded perceptions of God. The heart, the love is not contained in the heart. The heart is the portal to love. Drop down out of the mind into the heart. And rather than trying to find the vastness, the boundless grace of love contained in the heart, it's helpful to recognize the heart is simply an opening. Open the heart, open the heart, open the heart, let go, surrender, drop the defenses, open the heart, soften, and let the universe of love start to move through. Get familiar with that feeling, knowing that I am that. That is the nature of my true imperishable grace of being. And the more we get familiar with that, and the more often we rest in that grace, that's called awakening. Each meditation is a new awakening. And the more we awaken into that imperishable grace of being, the more familiar it becomes, and the more it stays awake until it is always present, awake, available. And it moves forward as the predominant beingness, the predominant knowing of self. And life comes in, and instead of it immediately meeting our story, life comes in and meets love. Imagine if the eyes were actually right here above the heart, and life came in and went directly into the heart. What if life was experienced directly in the heart? And then the heart guided a response and simply directed the mind to enact that response. Let the mind be in service to the love that moves through our open hearts. Hmm. All right, my dears. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for opening your hearts. The world needs a lot of love. There is a lot of love. The world just needs to do its healing. So, can we be part of the healing in this time of great division, fear, battle? Can we be the ones who are shining love into every shadow, into every pain, into every wound, and not collapse into the separation of hate, not collapse into the separation of otherness? There's only love. It's just that a lot of it is wounded. So we meet our own wounds. Maybe, hopefully, we can meet the wounds of others and still set our boundaries and encourage love, demand love, hold as a warrior of love, to hold that space. But as Martin Luther King said, hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. But we can't do it unless we're awakening into the true love and the true light of the imperishable grace and vastness of the love that we are. Beautiful. Much love. Thank you. Um, I, I, I don't know if I'm here next Sunday or not. I think I might be, but you've got the link now to the schedule, and if you're on YouTube, if this gets posted on YouTube, then I'll have the link to the schedule there. I know at some point I'm taking 2 weeks off, but these shares are enlivening for me as well. This is healing every time for me, and I hope it's healing for you. All right, blessings, much love.